G'day, and welcome to episode 26 of Tartarian Truthers with your hosts, Casey and JoJo. We are back with a jam packed episode full of surprises, which, of course, as always, lead us back to many more questions.
Yes, there are always so many questions, Jojo, and that is why we keep coming back for more. But before we start today, we want to let you all know that we are getting merch.
Yay!
So we did have a merch store up and running a few weeks ago, which you may have seen if you follow us on social media. But we had some issues with that particular platform. So we took it down and we're going with a new company, an Australian company, and we should have it up and running very, very soon.
Yes, I seriously cannot wait to get my G'day shirt. I'm not going to lie.
Well, it is the catchphrase, Jojo.
I know. G'day. Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to get my hands on a hoodie.
All right. So now on to this week's episode where we're going to be delving into the mysteries of star forts. So let's start with what a star fort is, shall we?
Yes, please, Jojo, because I'm going to be honest with you here. Before I fell into the rabbit hole that is our lost or, maybe stolen history is a better word, I'd never really heard of star forts before, yet they are everywhere, literally. So they're quite mainstream, really. There are websites dedicated to star fort sites all over the world, and even images of old maps and drawings of them. Take a look at some of these that we found just by doing a regular Google search.
Yeah, Casey, just like you, I knew very, very little about star forts, but once we started doing the research for this episode, we realized that they really are everywhere. And of course, in true Tartarian style, I wondered if there were any here in Australia. Okay, so let's see what else Google has to say about what a star fort is.
Yeah, so according to Military Wiki, a star fort is also known as a bastion fort. And here's what they have to say about them. A star fort or trace Italienne is a fortification in the style that evolved during the age of gunpowder, when the cannon came to dominate the battlefield and was first seen in the mid 15th century in Italy. Because the passive ring shaped fortifications of the medieval era proved vulnerable to damage or destruction by cannon fire when it could be directed from outside against a perpendicular masonry wall. Wow. Okay, so much to unpack from that. But first, 15th century JoJo. So
Hmm.
these absolutely meticulously built structures, which are so intricate and perfectly designed, were built at the end of the Dark Ages as a fortification. It seems kind of extravagant for a fort, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but also quite impractical as far as forts go. I mean, a star shaped fort has so many more corners for invaders to hide in or behind compared to a round or ring shaped fort, which is what the Vikings are said to have used. And secondly, how and why were they building forts like this in that time frame? I mean, this is the Dark Ages, yet they're building fortresses using what can only be described as sacred geometry, really. I mean, I'm pretty sure they didn't have drones to fly overhead and ensure that everything was exactly symmetrical and looking so stunningly beautiful from an aerial view back in the Dark Ages, did they?
No, most definitely not. And as aesthetically pleasing as these forts are, apparently a lot of the structure is actually unable to be seen from the outside, with approximately 50% of it being underground, including masses of tunnels.
Wow. Another thing that gets me, Jojo, is that they're everywhere, all over this realm of ours, from Europe to Canada, and even in the US and Japan. Don't you think that's odd? I mean, it's a bit like the old world architecture that we looked at in Australia versus the rest of the world episode. It's the same styles all over the world, often built in a time when we're told that a lot of the continents had very little or often no connection with each other whatsoever. So, how'd they all know to build in the same brilliant and symmetrical style?
Good question.
Were these awe-inspiring structures found almost all over this great realm of ours really fortresses then? Or could they have originally been something else entirely? Could they have had a function that has been lost or hidden from us in our false and largely made up history?
Yes, because we know they were used as fortresses. But what if before they were used as the most beautiful fortresses in the world, they were actually used for something much more valuable?
Yeah, so there are some theories out there about the star fort's original uses. And one of them is that there may have been a connection between all of these star fort sites, almost like a grid that spanned the entire realm. Now, it's suspected that these were actually elaborate power stations, harnessing and dispersing atmospheric electricity. Another suggestion, which we came across whilst watching a video on the New Earth YouTube channel called Star Forts or Ancient Power Stations documentary, which will pop in the description below, is that they may have also been extracting gas from the earth below.
Now, we don't know definitively what the original purpose of these structures were, but from above, they are dominant focal points. So it makes us wonder, were they perhaps located on powerful energy lines of the Earth? Or do they align with the stars or constellations above?
What we do know, though, is that we cannot replicate this kind of architecture today. And even when some of these ancient star forts have been repaired in modern times, it's been said that the repairs actually start to deteriorate faster than the original structure.
So, how old are they really? And how true is what we've actually been told about these often megalithic looking designs?
From experience, JoJo, I'd say not very true at all. You know, we're just fed a story over a few generations and it sticks. And then we just believe that a star fort is a fortress used for war. We no longer question their geometric beauty or their actual impracticality during battle. And we don't bother looking at correlations between their designs and cymatics. We no longer think outside the box that the mainstream historical narrative has put us all in.
Hmm. Except some people do, and more people are. Just like us, there are heaps of people out there who agree that this shit just doesn't add up. I mean, going back to what you said about cymatics, Casey, now, we've touched on this a little bit in our episode on Australian churches and cathedrals when we discussed the rose windows. So, if we look at this image, taken from this episode. It reads, cymatics is the visualization of sound and vibration in matter, something that has been found in the art and design of cultures from around the world for centuries. These are cymatics images of various musical notes in water, comparing them to the windows on cathedrals and churches that can be found all over our realm.
Now look at star forts. Very similar to cymatics images on water, wouldn't you say? So, how could primitive people in the Dark Ages know, understand, and build structures based on cymatics and frequency? And why bother if they were just forts?
Exactly. These so called forts may have actually been emitting massive amounts of healing frequencies out into the realm for all we know. And I'd have an easier time believing that than the whole battle for BS that we've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on. Now, you're probably all wondering how Australia fits into all of this, yeah? So, according to official history, Australia is one of the few countries in the world that doesn't have any star fort sites. But as you all know, we both believe that in the not too distant past, Australia was part of a huge cataclysmic event, which would mean that any star forts that may have existed would have been destroyed
Or partially destroyed,
or covered up.
or even repurposed. So, using Google Earth, we took some screenshots of locations in Australia that could have once upon a time been star forts. So, this one is actually pretty wild if you look at it from the perspective that this entire point, or South Head on Sydney Harbour as it's known, could have been a star fort. Now, when we mentioned them being possibly repurposed, what we meant was that a lot of these locations have batteries in them that we're told were used during World War One and World War Two. Yet we're also told that this battery here was built in 1876. Hmm. So you can see what they call the Hornby battery here.
Now, look at this image that we found of the same location, but back in the late 1800s.
Hmm. Looking pretty star fortish to me, Jojo.
Mm-hmm.
And already so old. I mean, these don't look like newly built fortifications to me. And considering that the world wars are still a way off in this time frame, this image really doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, who was the enemy of Australia when they say these were built in 1876? And thanks to a keen Tartarian truther, we have some boots on the ground footage of the battery today, sent in earlier this year by Alinta on Instagram.
Weird. This is probably the entrance to that tunnel. That's underneath the lighthouse. Wow, look at that. It's brick walled off. Fancy that.
Pretty impressive for an 1876 construction date, huh? And I wonder how far those tunnels go. And if you wanted to know what Alinta meant when she says that the tunnels probably go to the tunnel under the lighthouse, you can find out more in our Macquarie Lighthouse and its mysterious tunnel episode. Now, let's go and take a look at this location in Hobart. You may remember us pointing this out as a possible star fort site in our Aussie World's Fair and Exhibition episode.
Yeah, so this is an image we came across of the Tasmanian International Exhibition building in 1894 to 1895. So the narrative for this building is that it was built as a temporary structure just for the exhibition and then it was destroyed. likely story. As you can see, it looks like it could have actually been a star fort. And what really gets us thinking is its location. So, this is where it used to stand today. So, almost 150 years later, and it still has never been built on. A prime piece of waterfront real estate used for a war memorial, and the remainder of it is just grass. It seems kind of odd. I mean, why not even make it into a lovely park or something?
Hmm. Yeah. And then also, when you zoom in on Google Earth, check out these odd markings that you can see here and here.
Yeah, there's definitely something suspicious going on there, I reckon. Okay, now let's take a look at a few other possible star fort sites around Oz.
This one is Middlehead on Sydney Harbour. Once again, we believe this could actually be the remnants of a star fort repurposed as a barracks by the British.
And this next one in Newcastle, Fort Scratchley, also looks to have been repurposed.
And the same with Fort Glanville in Adelaide.
Now, this one we saw when Campbell from Autodidactic Channel mentioned it in one of his videos. He wasn't 100% sure, but marked it as a possible site. But we think even if it is a more modern structure, it's obviously been built in the likeness of a star fort. Because, they always enjoy mocking us and hiding stuff in plain sight, right?
Always. And here is what appears to be another repurposed star fort at the barracks in Queenscliff, Victoria.
And this next one is in Wollongong, which, as you can see, also has an old and odd style of barrack on it. It's almost just like a big hole in the ground. And we know from experience also that there are a lot of strange anomalies around the rocks and the rock pools in that area too. Now, you may remember us mentioning this island in the middle of Sydney Harbour in our Obelisks of Oz episode. So, this is Pinchgut Island, where Stephen Strong says that when the first fleet arrived, there was actually an obelisk already in place on this island. And when you think about that, it lends even more credibility to the fact that the Egyptians were visiting Australia thousands of years ago, just like we discussed in last week's episode on the Gosford glyphs. But also looking like once upon a time, this island may have in fact been part of a much bigger star fort. Who knows?
Now, this last one is on Kangaroo Bluff in Hobart. A battery, they say, was built in 1895. Hmm. Once again, we ask, for which enemy? The only land beyond Hobart is Antarctica, so it's kind of an odd place to build a battery, and it's not the only one. There are actually two more in the same vicinity. Don't you reckon that's odd?
Yeah, that's really odd. So many oddities, JoJo.
Yes, so many.
So these are just a few examples that we came across in our research and ones that others had shared that we seen in different videos and things. So we'll put a list of the videos that we've watched in the description below. But if you know of any more or you suspect that there's a Starport site near you, please let us know by leaving us a comment. So this leads us to the next part of our episode, golf courses. Now, you might be thinking, what the heck do golf courses have to do with star forts, right? Well, it is a known theory in the truth seeker community that star forts and other ancient sites often get hidden or protected by being covered up by golf courses. So, funnily enough, Sydney has three very interesting coastal golf courses, starting with Randwick Golf Course.
Then there's the New South Wales Golf Club, and why we needed two golf courses so close together, I don't know. But this course is in an absolutely stunning location. Once again, total prime waterfront real estate, probably worth billions in Sydney's market today. But what we found really fascinating was this. Due to the challenging nature of the course, the maximum handicap for men is 27 and for women, 36.
Hmm, interesting, right? So, it's a private club with limited access and is classed as a difficult course. So, again, even fewer people can go there. So, really, it's only the richest of the rich who have all the time in the world to work on their handicap that can even step foot on this glorious location. I wonder why.
I mean, could there be a star fort hidden under there? So, Casey, did you hear about that huge ass Ferris wheel that was buried under a golf course because they couldn't figure out how to properly dispose of it after the St. Louis Fair in the States?
Vaguely.
Yeah, so
Like me.
listen to this. The 1893 Ferris wheel, named after its inventor, George Washington Gale Ferris Jr., and the centerpiece of Chicago's 1893 Columbian exhibition still exists. Not the whole 264-foot structure, mind you. During its 13-year life, the Chicago Wheel, as it was sometimes known, carried 6 million passengers through two World's Fairs. After its second fair appearance, its owners decided the transportation and maintenance costs were too high. It came time to put her down.
Mm,
How did they even demolish that thing? I mean, look how big it is.
huge, huh?
So, as it goes on to say, this is actually a different article. In 1943, the first forest park dig for remnants of George Ferris's big wheel produced a 4-pound nut from the wheel. William Jones, who worked for the wrecking company in 1906, holds a nut unearthed by two workers. Jones insisted that the axle was buried under the park's golf course. So,
Very interesting.
Casey, seriously though, do we need to go any further?
That's it. End of the episode.
It's ended, finished. I mean, they're telling us right here that they buried remnants of our old world under this particular golf course. And yeah, it's in the States, but who's to say they wouldn't do something like that here?
Yeah. So if they would do it for one, why wouldn't they do it with others, right?
Exactly.
So, all right, let's move on. Do you want to see another absolutely epic Sydney golf course, JoJo?
Yeah.
Well, get ready for the Bondi Golf and Diggers Club.
Wow, what an incredible sight. It's such a good location, huh? And as we can see here, Bondi is more inclusive. Everyone's welcome. So that's very nice of them. But there is some strange shit going on at this golf course. Check this out. So we zoomed into Maryberry Pass and we kept on seeing more anomalies. The closer we got, the more we saw.
Random walls and very straight edged rocks and boulders.
Yep. And then what about this?
Yeah, a random wall, half
Yep.
buried,
Yep.
of course. It's very odd.
Mm.
But what is with that white column? It's so out of place for a golf course. And when we tried to find more info on it, all we could find was it being called a tower or a landmark, but nothing more on why it was there or who built it. So if anyone knows, please comment below because we would love to know what this thing's official narrative is.
Definitely. And if anyone is interested in playing a round of golf with me out there, let me know.
You're going to regret saying that, JoJo. You're going to be inundated.
I know. I just want to go and take a squiz at all of these anomalies over there. I'll just
You'll
take
be
my
like,
golf clubs out and
you'll be going on golf dates.
total golf dates, and I'll be intentionally hitting out of bounds. That's for sure. Okay, so now let's head down to Victoria. And what about the Royal Melbourne Golf Course? Looking very star shaped indeed.
It is. It's an interesting golf course, that one. And then we've got the Nelson Bay Golf Course right next to the Devil's Chair, too.
I wonder what that means.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's also really weird, Casey, that once again, our smallest and most isolated state, Tasmania, has not one, but two of the world's top golf courses.
Yeah, that is weird.
Beautiful, though, aren't they?
They're absolutely gorgeous. Once again, beautiful locations.
So, all this weirdness got us thinking about golf and its origins. And according to Wiki, it is generally accepted that golf was developed in Scotland in the Middle Ages.
And this bloke, Alistair Mackenzie, a Scottish name if I ever did hear one, was a famed golf course architect in the late 1800s, early 1900s. But what's interesting is that he first served in the war with the British Army as a military camouflage specialist, which he says he saw as closely related to golf course design. What the? Seriously, camouflaging, hey? What a coincidence, JoJo. And anyway, this guy, he went on to design more than 50 golf courses, including 3 that today are still in the top 10 golf courses in the world. One of them being the Royal Melbourne Golf Course, built in 1891.
Wow, can you imagine people from all over the world playing on this golf course that could possibly be a huge and cleverly camouflaged star fort? Talk about hidden in plain sight.
Totally crazy.
Mm.
Now, moving on to this golf course, also in Sydney, it was inaugurated in 1882 and it holds the honour of being the oldest golf club in the Commonwealth.
So, of the 56 independent member states that makes up the Commonwealth, Australia has the oldest one.
Yeah, apparently so. It really doesn't add up. But then we discovered this. Bum, bum, bum.
Well, well. That puts a whole new spin on why it's called the Masters, huh? Which led us to this golf course in the US, one of the most prestigious in the world, and one designed by, you guessed it, Mr. Alistair Mackenzie. And check out this article we came across from a newspaper called Go Upstate. Augusta National, Golf's Schmeeshmation's secret society. Home of the Masters has a history of making its own rules. Even Coca-Cola bows to the wishes of Augusta.
Here is an excerpt from the article. The most elite of clubs, it has counted among its members corporate titans, including famed General Electric executive Jack Welch and master investor Warren Buffett. President Dwight Eisenhower even had a residence built for him on the grounds. But mere wealth and position alone are not enough to gain entry. What makes Augusta especially exclusive, even for a small private club, is its strict invitation-only admission policy, the inner workings of which are never discussed publicly by members. Legend has it that members still vote on candidates by dropping white or black balls into a box. One black ball, and the candidate is finished. True or not, the story helps explain why members feel special, special enough to do things their own way when it comes to membership rules and their Masters tournament, one of golf's major championships. The club tells television networks how much, or rather how little, commercial time they can sell during tournament broadcasts. It tells announcers what they can and can't say. It tells sponsors how to display their products at the course. It tells tournament winners who are presented with green sports jackets when and where they can wear the coats. And everybody listens. When Augusta National severely limited the number of commercials to preserve the tournament's dignity, CBS said it was all right. When two of the network's announcers were barred from the broadcast booth for misspeaking, that was okay too. One referred to Augusta's sloping greens as body bags. Another called Masters galleries made up of patrons a mob. When Coca-Cola was told to keep its name and logo off its drink cups at the tournament, the company went along. Sponsors have to, marketers say, or Augusta National simply could turn to an eager competitor willing to play by the rules.
So, as you can see, shmee and golf go hand in hand. And we should have known, Casey. We should have known. I mean, I know. I mean, look, you got playing around 18 holes, right? 2 rounds of 9 holes. But does it really stand for 3 lots of 6?
Oh, gosh.
But learning this did make us dig a little deeper. And upon doing so, we discovered that this guy, Arnold Palmer, another famed golfer come golf course architect who has designed over 300 golf courses in his career, is also in the club.
Wow, it's all connected, huh? So do you think that this game, like most things, was hijacked and stolen by the Shmeeshmations? Perhaps it was one of the original sports distractions, bread and circuses, as they say. And then they realized that they could also actually use it to camouflage elements from the past that they didn't want future generations to know about. Because if these golf courses really are hiding star forts, and we now know from this episode that at least 50% of star forts also continue underground with systems of tunnels and bunkers, which is strangely the same terminology that they use for these sand bunkers. And the most prestigious golf courses in the most incredible locations are really only marketed to the very, very wealthy. Some, like the Augusta, are even only for the elite. So, what are these elite Shmeeshmations doing in these clubs and on these courses that us peasants aren't privy to?
Yeah. I think if we actually knew, we'd probably wish we didn't. It's definitely not just tea and cucumber sandwiches. I know that much.
Yeah, definitely not. But that brings us to the end of another enlightening yet mind boggling episode. Star forts and golf courses. Are they one and the same? Are there more star fort sites here in Australia that we aren't even aware of? So many questions, JoJo, as always. But we will leave you all to ponder upon them until next time. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. This just in from one of our trusty Tartarian truthers. Remember we mentioned this site in Tassie? Well, it appears that there are plans for a stadium right here. And now check out its planned design. Thanks, Shane, for sharing. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on that one.